I'm just thinking about this stresses me out. I started to question my ability to actually be a mom and thinking like I wasn't fit for it because it was so hard. So I was thinking I need to come on here and do a video that is so long overdue, and that is Norah's sleep training and adjusting into life. And I figured today was the perfect day to do that because I am exhausted. I woke up this morning and I was having deja vu as I was like going through the motions of getting Norah up for the morning and ready for the day and like trying to take care of myself. I was just like, I'm so tired and all I want to do is go back to sleep. One day I sat down. Norah had to be, I want to say, a month or two old. And after crying multiple times because of how tired I was and the fact that I couldn't settle Norah and she was just so tired but she wouldn't sleep, I decided that I needed to figure something out. So I started doing research. I was Googling every 3 seconds. I had one mom friend that I could confide in because our babies had been born around the same time and she lived nearby. Norah, we didn't co-sleep. So that's the first thing. Norah slept in my bedroom in the lifted pack and play. And what I mean is like the normal pack and plays that you see, it's just like the floor and then the box. For ours, we just had it up a little bit because she was so small. And it was just better than having me reach over with my fresh incision to get her out as a newborn. Every time I laid her down, I would stare at her thinking that she was going to wake up. And there was no point in me sleeping because she was just going to wake up really quickly. And I didn't want to be groggy. This sounds weird, but like I didn't want to be really out of it when she woke up because I wanted to be like present and be able to do my job. But the funny thing that is contradictory about that is that if I wanted to be present and do a good job, I had to sleep a little to gain some energy back. It was a terrible circle of death. So one day, after crying and being stressed about it and sleep deprived and feeling like there was no light at the end of the tunnel, I started to question my ability to actually be a mom and thinking like I wasn't fit for it because it was so hard in the beginning. That I sat down after crying and being emotional about that, and I wrote out on a notebook her habits because I wanted to try and figure out when she was having her witching hour and like when she was awake the longest and like try to develop a routine for her. She didn't follow the routine that I had tried to write out at all, and it was almost impossible for me to like keep this little tracking notepad. So I found an app, and I'm going to show you guys the app because I used this app for a long time. The app is called Baby Manager, and I have it on her tablet still. I'm going to select it right here. I actually put it on our phones way back when, and she was playing with this earlier. Anyway, I had this app on Jacob and I's phone way back when. Here's what it looks like when we open it. I'm just tilting it down so there's no glare from the window. So we can track her feeds, whether formula feeding or breastfeeding, and you can do each side for breastfeeding, like how long she fed on my left boob or my right boob. It's fun stuff like that. And then also, if she did have a bottle, we could put like how many milliliters or ounces that she had, just whatever we felt like doing. And that really actually helped as well. But we're talking about sleep today, so we're going to click on the sleep. Okay, so I was like, there has to be something. So this is the history of all the times I have recorded Norah's sleep. And her naps and her sleep through the night. And this is how I kept track of everything. My dad used to make fun of me and be like, he was like, oh, that's cool. They make an app to make the baby go to sleep. And I was like, haha, Dad, you don't understand because I'm the one who's sleep deprived here and it's not a joke. Like I need to have a process. And for me, I'm a very visual person and I like to see everything. That way I can make adjustments for Norah's routine. So to start sleep, I always used to say I need to start Norah's sleep. To start her sleep, you select this little button first up here. Come on. And then there's a little 00 right here. I haven't used this in a long time, so I had to look at it. It's just like a timer. So I would hit play to start it, and it will start timing. And then when Norah would wake up, I would just look at the app really quick. Usually it was on my phone and it was on the top, like drop down. I would just swipe down and hit stop. But on the iPad here, I'm just gonna hit stop and it will record it right here. And it remembers the exact time of the day and the date, so you can go back and compare and try to figure out a good routine. This just worked for me. I know a lot of people think this is stupid, but like it saved my life and I love this thing. So the last time we tracked her sleep, like honestly tracked her sleep, was 88 days ago. It was April 23rd. So we tracked her sleep from about a month or two old to a year, almost a year and a month old. I got kind of like it toward the end. I didn't really need to do it anymore. It was more of a comfort thing for me because I had gotten a routine in tracking her sleep, but yeah. And it also helped me figure out how many naps she needed a day and if she needed to drop a nap, because in the beginning it was like she slept 30 minutes and then was awake 30 minutes and then slept 30 minutes and was awake. And you can imagine how draining that can be as I kept going into the nursery and re-swaddling her when she was really small and then doing the shushing and the patting and the rocking. And sometimes, you know, I would lay her down and she wouldn't even sleep, and then I would have to take her out, you know, do activities with her to keep her going and then put her back down again. You can go to the analysis section of this app and it will show you all of the details and the trends of what you're logging as far as sleep goes and even feeding, but we're not talking about that, like I said. So right here is the past 6 months. It's kind of weird because we haven't used it in, well, since she was about 1, so it's been a few months. She's like 15 months now. Almost, wait, no, she's almost 16 months. Oh my god. Anyway, this, I just selected up here on the top how many sleep hours per day, and you can actually do like what the sleep durations are to see how long she's sleeping. If it seems like she's sleeping longer in a day based on like what you read here, it's probably a growth spurt, like she's growing. So I just clicked on how many sleep hours per day in the past 6 months. Up here on the side are these numbers right here, are how many hours per day, and she was hitting closer to 15 hours per day as of the past 6 months, like I said. So that's kind of how this app was helpful for me. I was able to just look at things and be able to tell, and then I would look at her feedings, like it also has on there the analytics, like you can compare the feedings and the sleeping. So like based on the fact that she had say 8 ounces before her nap, she slept an extra 2 hours. Stuff like that was really helpful for me to see. The fact that the app kind of put it together for me, that way I didn't have to just like remember everything, because I remember thinking, I don't even know the last time she slept. I don't know how much milk she had. I mean, I was also nursing, so a lot of the times I didn't know how much milk she had, especially in the beginning. But it was just really helpful to have this and be able to look and for sure know that as long as I'm recording consistently, it's a good source of information to kind of figure out what's going on with the baby. And then when I went to the pediatrician appointments, every so often I could tell them exactly what was going on. And I brought in this sometimes, and the pediatrician laughed at me like, yeah, whatever works for you. Like if that works for you and you like it, then go for it. But I know a lot of moms don't. And I was just like, yeah, it works for me and I love it. Jacob used this with me, the same app. I'm pointing at this, but we use it on our phones because we had it synced to both of our phones, so we could both use it through the same profile, and it would, if he added something, it would show up on my phone and stuff like that. Also, when I was gone, like if I had to go do something and Jacob was watching Norah, I could see like her sleep timer had started or had ended. So like I also kind of know what's going on at home, since my baby monitor with this one, the Lavana baby monitor, I can't see through my phone. So that was like also kind of comforting as a new mom to like know when she's sleeping and when she's not, because I was that mom. I had so much anxiety, and I had never had so much stress in my life until I became a mom. Hang on. Let's rewind. Let's go way back in time to when Norah was first born and she was a newborn and she was waking up multiple hours in the night. I was a full-on zombie. My mom stayed 2 weeks after Norah was born to help me and get up with me in the middle of the night and help me get rest when I could. Norah was sleeping about 2 to 3 hour chunks at a time, unless it was nighttime. It's like she knew. She was trying to be nocturnal on me. Once my mom left, it was just me because Jacob was still away at his work training. And he came back when Norah was about, I don't know, a month and a half old, I think. So I was alone for a while and completely sleep deprived. I didn't know what time of day it was. I wasn't eating. I wasn't even drinking water. Like, all I was doing was making sure Norah was okay, and I was slowly but surely losing my mind entirely. And I had way too much pride to ask anyone for help, even though my in-laws live fairly close to me. I was like, nope, I got this. I can do this on my own. When Jacob came home, those were the days I actually put in more effort, and like I would try to put makeup on and make a meal and make sure the baby was cute in a cute outfit. But for the most of the other time, I felt bad if she wore the same onesie like for 2 days in a row, or if she was just completely naked. Like, the best I could do was just that. Sometimes she wouldn't even have a onesie on, and I felt guilty. Well, she'd have a diaper, obviously, and then when she was sleeping, I would always swaddle her because she really did like being swaddled. So, yeah, that was the beginning. Jacob and I really took turns in the beginning, off and on. Like, he would get up with her once in the middle of the night when he finally did come back home from his mandatory work training, and then it was usually during her witching hour. So that gave me about 4 hours straight of sleep every night, which helped immensely. I remember the first time Norah gave me 4 hours of sleep, I woke up panicked that she was not breathing, because it was abnormal for me to wake up naturally as opposed to waking up to her sleeping, because I would think like she would just wake up constantly from like fussing or crying, and then I would panic. She slept for about 4 months. She slept in the pack and play next to the bed in my master bedroom. And so I was really careful to be very quiet and always sleep when she was sleeping. I took that very seriously. I hardly ever was awake when she was sleeping, or at least doing things, I guess. Like, I would be awake in bed and I would be afraid to look at my phone. I'd be afraid the light would wake her. I'd be afraid that if I rolled over on my bed, that the sound of the creaking would wake her, when in reality, she probably would have slept through most of that, and it was just a coincidence most of the time that she woke up and I thought it was the sound I made or like a sound she heard outside. So the paranoid new mom anxiety was real for me. But so she slept in the back and play for about 4 months. At the 4-month mark, we talked to the pediatrician, and the pediatrician gave us the okay to start sleep training. And I had done some research on different types of sleep training. We never co-slept, but we decided that it was a good time. The first reason we decided to go along with sleep training is because, one, she didn't want to be confined. She didn't want to be in the DockATot anymore or swaddled. So I just made sure she was in a really warm sleeper, because I like doing the full body sleepers for her. Not that it's so cold here in Arizona, but it was just kind of cold in the house sometimes. Then the second reason we went ahead to go forward with sleep training is because she started rolling, like on her side, sometimes occasionally around 4.5 months onto her stomach. And I could just tell that she slept better on her side or on her stomach. She didn't sleep as well on her back. And to this day, still, she is 15, almost 16 months old, sleeps on her stomach every single night. If we find her on her back, it's a very rare occasion. She gets that from me. I'm a stomach sleeper too. The third reason is because the pediatrician, after evaluating her at her 4-month checkup, told me that she didn't need to have feeds in the middle of the night anymore. Like, if she were to eat in the middle of the night, it was a want, not a need, like a comfort thing. So, I mean, I still did a little bit after they told me that she didn't need to eat in the middle of the night, just because it felt right. Like, sometimes I just felt like she needed it. I know her best. So there was a few times after the 4-month mark that I did feed her in the middle of the night. But, oh my God, my eye's twitching. Stop. Okay. But with those 3 things, no more DockATot or swaddle, the fact that she started rolling and sleeping better on her side or stomach, and that she was growing at a good rate and didn't need to have feeds in the middle of the night anymore because she was weighing appropriately, we decided to go forward with it. And like I said, this is despite the sleeping regression that she was currently going through. So the Ferber method is also known as the cried out method. We did a modified version of this because honestly it was too hard on my heart. The Ferber method is you do your nighttime routine, and then you lay your baby down when they're drowsy but still awake, and then you leave the room completely, like with the door closed, And if and when your baby starts crying, let them cry up to 15 minutes at a time, or 15 to 30. It's something really scary long. And then you go back in and comfort them without picking them up, and then leave and do that all over again. Excuse me. That was way too long for me. That freaked me out. When we first started it, it was very little amount of time. We would do the whole routine. We would give her a bath if she needed a bath, put on a fresh diaper and jammies, well, lotion before jammies, and then hold her, give her her last feed of the evening, rock her a little bit, get her drowsy, but still, so when she's still awake after that, we would set her in her crib, lay her down with her webbing up as well back then, like when she was really little, around the 4-month mark. And then we would leave the room. And we started it really small. I thought like a minute would be way too fast. So we did 2 minutes at a time. And you're supposed to increase the amount of time that you're gone after you go back in. So what I mean is, she would cry when we left. 2 minutes would go by, I'd go back in, comfort her, or Jacob. We kind of both had to do this together because without Jacob, I wouldn't have been strong enough to do this. She'd probably still be waking up in the middle of the night if it was just me by myself, because in the beginning, it hurt me so bad to hear her cry. I felt like I was a bad mom and a failure and I was hurting her when really I wasn't. It just felt that way. But anyways, she would cry for 2 minutes. I'd go back in, comfort her, like kind of stroke her head or her cheek and tell her that I love her. I try not to do a lot of talking, and you're not supposed to do a lot of eye contact either. But sometimes I would like pat her side so she'd have the feeling of rocking, and then I would leave. And then I would wait 4 minutes, so even longer. And then if she's still crying after 4 minutes, do the same thing and then leave. And you're supposed to keep upping it. For me, if it got out of control and she got to like, I don't know, 12, 15 minutes of crying, I would want to break. But usually what I mean by break is like pick her up and hold her and love her like something else must be wrong and she needs me. But usually she would never make it to 12 or 15 minutes, anything like that. She would actually fall asleep on her own. And the first time that this happened, I thought that she was playing a game with us, and she knew. She had no idea. But I thought it was a lie, and she would wake up in 2 seconds later. And it did take some adjusting, like the middle of the night around her witching hour time, the time that was her witching hour, usually about 1 a.m. or 3 a.m. It kind of varied. She would cry, and I'd have to go back in there and comfort her 1 or 2 times. But after that, she would go to sleep for like the rest of the night, or the morning, I guess, at that point. And it was amazing. So after the first week of doing this modified Ferber cried out method, she started sleeping 8 hours straight, 10 hours straight, 12 hours straight, the full 12 hours. And then the second week, we were like, okay, it's working now. She's sleeping the full 12 hours. She started to have a little bit of a regression. And when I talked to the pediatrician about it, she told me that that's normal. And because the fact that she's going through a sleeping regression around the 4-month period, like, that was bound to happen. So we just continued our routine. We're never supposed to break from it because consistency is key with your baby. And if you just kind of do like pick her up sometimes, but sometimes don't, it will get confusing for Norah or for anyone's baby. She also would lose her webbing up sometimes. So when we went back in to like pat her and shush her while crying, we'd make sure to give it back to her. Around 7 months, it was right before Christmas, so it was November. I was thinking about buying her a new Webnub because she only had one since she was born in April. So April to November, only had one Webnub that she was very attached to. But I read on the back of the Webnub in November that you're supposed to not give it to them anymore around 6 months. And Norah was 7 months. So I was thinking like, I mean, I see tons of parents who do that. Maybe we'll do that. But after considering it, talking to Jacob about it, we decided to cut the Webnub habit at 7 months. And this was really scary for us because we had been having her sleep through the night for, at that time, it had been 3 months that she was sleeping through the night. And we were very thankful for that, and we didn't want to lose that. But one night, we just cut the Webnub pacifier off, gave her the giraffe, which I'm thankful we were able to still give her something, whereas other pacifiers, it's just the whole pacifier you don't give anymore, so they feel completely empty-handed, whereas with the Webnub, we just cut off the nibble, gave her the giraffe, and then laid her down in her crib like normal, but she didn't have anything in her mouth. And to my surprise and Jacob's surprise, she went right to sleep. Like, she fussed a little bit and was confused, and she kept grabbing the giraffe and just, you know, like she kept trying to put it in her mouth, but there was no pacifier in the end. And eventually she chucked the giraffe Didn't even snuggle it or anything. To the corner of the crib it went, and she went to sleep like nothing. I think that honestly 7 months was the perfect time, and the Webinub creators knew. That's why they put 6 months on the back of the package, not only because it's bad for their mouth and like the way their mouth developed. We cut the pacifier off at the perfect time. Norah was just young enough to not remember the Webinub, and like I mean, when she would be playing during the day, she would still grab it and sometimes put it toward her mouth. Like, I think it was more of a habit to her, not a memory as much. So it was the perfect time. When we first cut the Webinub off, it was a discussion between Jacob and I whether to cut the Webinub pacifier and give it to her before a nap or before her full night's sleep. We decided to go with the full night's sleep as the first time without the actual pacifier because we figured she would be most drowsy and more likely to fall asleep. Like, we would just, if she were to have been upset, we would have just done a little bit of the cry it out method, the Ferber method, and then she would go to sleep through the night without it. Because usually around this time, 7 months, when she did have the pacifier, she would wake up and the pacifier wouldn't be in her mouth anymore, or she'd fall asleep with it in her mouth sometimes, but usually it was just wherever in the crib. And then in the morning, before I went to get her, as she was waking up, she would grab it and put it back in, and that's how she would start the day. That's why we decided to do it in the evening instead of during nap times, because I think nap times she doesn't sleep as hard as she does through the night, and she'd be more likely to be upset and stay awake, and then cause her to be overtired, which was a whole nother scary thing to deal with. Oh, she is awake. Okay guys, that is everything for how we sleep trained Norah. I hope that you guys found this video helpful. If you have any questions about something specifically, let me know. I'm sure there's a few things I didn't touch on because it's been so long since we had to even think about sleep training or all of the techniques that we used. But thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.